The opulent lobby of Sterling Heights Medical Center gleamed under the soft glow of crystal chandeliers, their light refracting into a kaleidoscope of colors that danced across the polished marble floors. It was an architectural marvel designed to exude wealth and sophistication, a fitting introduction to one of the most prestigious private healthcare facilities in the city. Yet amidst the grandeur there existed a quiet tension, an undercurrent of hierarchy and privilege that permeated every interaction within its walls. On this particular morning, the air buzzed with anticipation as Eleanor Whitmore strode through the revolving doors, her presence commanding attention without effort. Dressed in a tailored navy blue suit adorned with gold accents, she carried herself with the poise of someone who had spent decades perfecting the art of intimidation. Her stiletto heels clicked sharply against the floor, each step echoing like a declaration of authority. A diamond-encrusted watch graced her wrist, its sparkle rivaling the chandeliers above, while her sleek platinum blonde hair framed a face hardened by years of calculated ambition. Eleanor was no stranger to luxury or power. As the daughter of a real estate tycoon and wife of a billionaire hedge fund manager, she moved through life with an unshakable sense of entitlement. To her, places like Sterling Heights were not just hospitals. They were sanctuaries for the elite, where the wealthy could receive care without mingling with the unwashed masses. Today, however, Eleanor's visit was less about medical necessity and more about asserting dominance. She had come to confront a member of the nursing staff over what she perceived as incompetence during her recent stay at the facility. Meanwhile, tucked discreetly behind the reception desk, Sarah Thompson adjusted her uniform nervously. At 32, Sarah had worked tirelessly to build a career in nursing, driven by a deep desire to help others despite the challenges of her modest upbringing. Her dark brown hair was pulled back into a neat bun, and her scrubs bore faint traces of wear from countless shifts spent caring for patients. Though outwardly composed, Sarah couldn't shake the knot forming in her stomach as whispers spread among the staff about Eleanor's impending arrival. "They're saying she's furious," murmured Lisa, another nurse, leaning close enough for Sarah to hear but far enough to avoid drawing attention. "Something about missing a dose of pain meds last time she was here." Sarah nodded silently, her fingers tightening around the clipboard in her hands. She knew exactly why Eleanor might be upset. During Eleanor's last visit, Sarah had been assigned to monitor her recovery after minor cosmetic surgery. Despite following protocol meticulously, she had inadvertently missed administering a dose of pain medication on time due to an emergency elsewhere on the floor. When Eleanor complained loudly about the oversight, Sarah had apologized profusely, but the incident clearly hadn't been forgotten. As Eleanor approached the front desk, her gaze sweeping dismissively over the bustling staff, Sarah felt her pulse quicken. There was something predatory in Eleanor's demeanor, a coldness that made it clear she viewed everyone else as beneath her. For Sarah, this confrontation wasn't just professional, it was personal. Growing up in poverty, she had faced disdain from people like Eleanor her entire life. But now, standing in the pristine halls of Sterling Heights, she refused to let fear dictate her response. Across the room, unnoticed by either woman, sat an elderly man sipping tea from a delicate porcelain cup. His name was Arthur Langley. Though few people outside the highest echelons of society recognized it anymore. Once a titan of industry, Arthur had amassed a fortune rivaling even Eleanor's husband's empire. Now in his late 80s, he preferred solitude, retreating from public life to observe the world quietly from the sidelines. He frequented Sterling Heights, not because he required medical care, but because he found solace in watching humanity play out before him. Today, however, Arthur's curiosity was piqued. He had witnessed Eleanor's dramatic entrances before. Her tantrums were legendary. But something about this encounter felt different. Perhaps it was the way Sarah stood her ground, her posture radiating quiet resolve despite the obvious disparity in status. Or perhaps it was the flicker of recognition in Eleanor's eyes when she glanced briefly toward Arthur's corner, unaware of who he truly was. Whatever the reason, Arthur leaned forward slightly in his chair, intrigued by the unfolding drama. Eleanor stopped abruptly in front of the reception desk, her sharp eyes locking onto Sarah almost instantly. "You," she said coolly, pointing a manicured finger in Sarah's direction. "Do you remember me?" Sarah straightened, forcing herself to meet Eleanor's piercing gaze. "Yes, Mrs. Whitmore," she replied evenly. "How can I assist you today?" Eleanor's lips curled into a thin smile devoid of warmth. Assist me? That's rich coming from someone whose negligence nearly ruined my recovery. Her voice rose slightly, drawing the attention of nearby patients and staff. Let me remind you of the chaos your incompetence caused. Do you have any idea how much suffering I endured because of your mistake? Sarah swallowed hard, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment. She wanted to defend herself, to explain that emergencies sometimes forced nurses to prioritize critical cases over routine tasks. But before she could respond, Eleanor continued, her tone dripping with disdain. People like you shouldn't even be allowed to work in a place like this. You're clearly out of your depth, wasting resources meant for those who deserve proper care. The words hit Sarah like a slap, igniting a mix of anger and shame. She clenched her fists beneath the counter, reminding herself to remain calm. Mrs. Whitmore, I apologize again for the oversight, she said firmly. But I assure you my primary goal is always patient well-being. If you'd like to discuss further concerns, I'm happy to do so privately. Privately? Eleanor scoffed, glancing around the room as if daring anyone to challenge her. Why should I give you the courtesy of privacy when you showed none to me? Your actions were reckless and they reflect poorly on this institution as a whole. By now a small crowd had gathered, drawn by the spectacle. Some looked sympathetic toward Sarah, while others seemed eager to witness her humiliation. Among them, Arthur observed silently, his expression unreadable. He sipped his tea thoughtfully, noting the subtle tremor in Sarah's hands as she clutched the clipboard tighter. Despite her composure, it was clear she was struggling to maintain control. Just as Eleanor prepared to deliver another cutting remark, Arthur cleared his throat softly. The sound was barely audible, yet it somehow commanded the room's attention. All eyes turned to him, including Eleanor's, whose brow furrowed in irritation. Is there something you'd like to add, sir? She asked curtly, her tone laced with impatience. Arthur set down his teacup and rose slowly, leaning heavily on his cane. His movements were deliberate, each step imbued with a quiet dignity that demanded respect. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft but carried an unmistakable weight. Perhaps it would be wise to consider the broader context of this situation, he suggested, his gaze steady. Mistakes happen, even in the best-run establishments. What matters is how we address them and whether we choose to foster understanding rather than resentment. Eleanor blinked, momentarily thrown off balance. She opened her mouth to retort but hesitated, unsure how to respond to such measured criticism. Instead, she settled for narrowing her eyes at Arthur suspiciously. And who exactly are you to weigh in on this matter? She demanded. Arthur smiled faintly, the corners of his eyes crinkling with amusement. An interested observer, he replied simply, though I suspect my perspective may hold some relevance here. Before Eleanor could press further, Sarah seized the opportunity to interject. Thank you for your insight. Sir, she said graciously, addressing Arthur directly. Then, turning back to Eleanor, she added, if you'd still like to file a formal complaint, I'll ensure it's handled appropriately. However, I hope you'll also recognize that we're all striving to provide the best possible care. For a moment, the two women locked gazes, the tension between them palpable. Finally, Eleanor huffed in frustration, realizing she had lost the upper hand. With a final glare at Sarah, she spun on her heel and marched toward the exit, muttering under her breath about incompetence and mediocrity. As the crowd dispersed, Sarah exhaled deeply, her shoulders sagging with relief. She glanced toward Arthur, offering him a grateful nod. Thank you, she said softly. That couldn't have been easy for you. Arthur chuckled lightly, waving off her gratitude. Sometimes a little perspective is all it takes to shift the tide, he remarked cryptically. Then, with a polite tip of his hat, he returned to his seat, leaving Sarah to wonder what secrets lay hidden behind his enigmatic smile. Eleanor's dramatic exit left an indelible mark on the atmosphere of Sterling Heights Medical Center. As the doors swung shut behind her, a collective sigh of relief seemed to ripple through the staff and patients alike. Yet beneath the surface calm, the incident lingered like an unresolved chord, its echoes reverberating in subtle ways throughout the day. For Sarah, the confrontation was far from over. It had ignited a storm of conflicting emotions that refused to settle. Returning to her duties, Sarah found it difficult to focus. Eleanor's cutting remarks replayed in her mind like a broken record, each word chipping away at her confidence. Despite Arthur's intervention, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had been humiliated in front of her. colleagues and patients. The weight of Eleanor's disdain pressed heavily on her chest, making even simple tasks feel insurmountable. Her co-workers, sensing her distress, offered words of encouragement. Lisa placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder during a brief lull. "Don't let her get to you," she said gently. "Eleanor Whitmore is notorious for treating everyone like dirt. It's not about you, it's about her." Sarah nodded, appreciating the sentiment but unable to fully embrace it. "I know," she murmured, "but it still stings. She made me feel small." Lisa frowned sympathetically.
"She does that to people because she can."
"But don't forget, you're the one saving lives here, not her." The reminder bolstered Sarah's resolve, if only slightly. Still, as the hours passed, she became increasingly aware of how Eleanor's presence had disrupted the usual rhythm of the hospital. Conversations among the staff carried an undertone of unease, as though everyone feared another outburst might erupt without warning. Even the patients seemed more subdued, their interactions tinged with caution. Meanwhile, Arthur remained seated in his corner, observing the aftermath with keen interest. Though he appeared engrossed in a leather-bound book, his sharp eyes missed nothing. He noticed how Sarah's movements grew slower, her usual efficiency replaced by hesitation. He saw the sidelong glances exchanged between nurses and doctors, their body language betraying discomfort, and he detected the faint tension in the air, a residue of Eleanor's tirade that clung stubbornly to the environment. Arthur had witnessed countless displays of power and privilege in his lifetime, but there was something uniquely compelling about this particular confrontation. Perhaps it was Sarah's quiet resilience in the face of such blatant condescension, or perhaps it was Eleanor's blind arrogance, so entrenched in her wealth and status that she failed to see the humanity around her. Whatever the reason, Arthur felt a spark of curiosity ignite within him, urging him to delve deeper into the dynamics at play. By late afternoon, Sarah decided to take a short break, retreating to the staff lounge to collect her thoughts. The room was empty save for a few discarded coffee cups and the faint hum of fluorescent lights overhead. She sank onto a worn couch, resting her head in her hands as exhaustion washed over her. Her mind wandered back to Arthur's intervention earlier, his calm demeanor, his measured words. There had been something oddly comforting about his presence, as though he possessed a wisdom born of experience that transcended the petty squabbles of everyday life. As if summoned by her thoughts, the door creaked open and Arthur entered quietly. He paused for a moment, studying her with an expression that was neither pity nor judgment, simply observation.
"May I join you?"
he asked softly, gesturing to the seat across from her. Startled, Sarah sat up straighter, smoothing her scrubs self-consciously. "Of course," she replied, gesturing toward the chair. "Thank you again for stepping in earlier. I'm not sure what would have happened if you hadn't." Arthur settled into the chair with a soft groan, leaning his cane against the armrest. "Think nothing of it," he said dismissively. "Though I must admit I found the exchange rather fascinating." Sarah raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite herself. "Fascinating? That's not exactly how I'd describe it." He chuckled lightly, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "Ah, but therein lies the difference between us. You were caught in the moment, grappling with emotions and instincts. I, on the other hand, viewed it from a distance as a study in human behavior." Sarah tilted her head, curiosity piqued. "And what did you observe?" Arthur leaned back, adopting a contemplative pose. "I observed, too, individuals acting precisely as their circumstances dictated. Mrs. Whitmore, secure in her wealth and influence, sought to assert dominance, a common trait among those who equate material success with moral superiority. And you, Miss Thompson, demonstrated remarkable restraint in the face of provocation, choosing dignity over retaliation." His analysis struck a chord within Sarah, resonating with truths she had struggled to articulate herself. "It's easy to say I should rise above it," she admitted. "But when someone like her looks down on me like I'm worthless, it's hard not to internalize that." "Indeed," Arthur agreed, nodding sagely. "But you must remember, worth is not determined by the opinions of others. It is intrinsic, immutable. Those who judge based on superficial criteria reveal more about themselves than they do about you." Sarah absorbed his words, feeling a flicker of strength reignite within her. "You sound like you've dealt with people like her before." Arthur smiled wistfully, his gaze drifting toward the window. "More times than I care to count. In my younger years, I often found myself entangled in similar power struggles. Over time, however, I learned that true authority stems not from intimidation, but from respect, and that respect must be earned, not demanded. Their conversation continued, flowing naturally as Sarah opened up about her own experiences, navigating class disparities and professional challenges. Arthur listened intently, offering insights gleaned from decades of navigating high-stakes environments. By the time they parted ways, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose, as though a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Unbeknownst to either of them, their interaction had set another chain of events into motion, one that would soon alter the trajectory of both their lives. As the days turned into weeks, Sarah noticed a shift in the hospital's operations. Subtle changes began cropping up, new policies implemented overnight, unannounced inspections disrupting routines, and whispers of budget cuts circulating among the staff. At first, these developments seemed unrelated to Eleanor's visit, mere coincidences in the ever-evolving landscape of healthcare management. But as the pattern emerged, suspicions grew. One morning, during a team meeting, the head administrator announced plans to restructure certain departments, citing efficiency concerns. Among the proposed changes was the elimination of several nursing positions, ostensibly to streamline workflows and reduce costs. The news sent ripples of anxiety through the staff, particularly among junior nurses like Sarah, whose roles were deemed expendable under the new framework. Determined to understand the motivations behind these decisions, Sarah began digging deeper. Late nights spent poring over financial reports and memos revealed inconsistencies that raised red flags. While the administration claimed the restructuring aimed to improve patient care, the data suggested otherwise. Budget allocations skewed heavily toward cosmetic upgrades and luxury amenities, features tailored to attract wealthy clientele like Eleanor Whitmore, while essential services faced significant reductions. Sarah shared her findings with trusted colleagues, sparking heated discussions about accountability and transparency. Many suspected external pressure from influential donors or board members, though no concrete evidence surfaced. Frustrated but undeterred, Sarah resolved to confront the administration directly, armed with irrefutable proof of their mismanagement. Her opportunity came sooner than expected. During a routine audit, Sarah stumbled upon a confidential document outlining negotiations between the hospital and a major benefactor. To her astonishment, the benefactor's name was none other than Eleanor Whitmore. According to the paperwork, Eleanor had pledged substantial funding contingent on specific operational changes strikingly similar to those recently announced. Realizing the implications, Sarah knew she had uncovered the smoking gun. Armed with the document, she scheduled a private meeting with the hospital's CEO, Dr. Margaret Hensley, known for her no-nonsense approach and commitment to ethical practices. Dr. Hensley was Sarah's best hope for addressing the issue head-on. The meeting took place in Dr. Hensley's office, a modest yet functional space, adorned with medical accolades and family photographs. Sarah presented her findings calmly but firmly, laying out the connections between Eleanor's donations and the controversial restructuring plans. Dr. Hensley listened attentively, her expression growing increasingly grave as the evidence mounted. "This is deeply troubling," she admitted once Sarah finished speaking. "If these allegations are true, it represents a breach of our core values. We cannot allow external pressures to compromise patient care." Sarah nodded, relief washing over her. "I trust you'll handle this appropriately," she said earnestly. "But I also want to ensure safeguards are put in place to prevent future manipulation." Dr. Hensley assured her that immediate action would be taken, including an independent review of all donor agreements and enhanced oversight mechanisms. Satisfied with the response, Sarah left the office feeling cautiously optimistic about the outcome. What she didn't realize, however, was that her actions had inadvertently drawn Arthur Langley's attention once again. Unbeknownst to anyone, Arthur had been monitoring the situation closely, intrigued by the unfolding drama and Sarah's role in exposing the truth. His interest wasn't purely altruistic. Sterling Heights Medical Center held significant personal value to him, though few outside his inner circle understood why. When Sarah returned to work the following day, she found a note slipped beneath her locker door. Written in elegant script, it read, "Your courage inspires admiration. Meet me tonight at 7 p.m. in the library lounge. A.L. Curiosity mingled with apprehension as Sarah considered the invitation. Who was AL and what could they possibly want? Something told her this encounter would prove pivotal, but whether for better or worse remained to be seen. The library lounge of Sterling Heights Medical Center was a quiet, unassuming space tucked away on the second floor. It boasted floor-to-ceiling shelves lined with medical journals, classic literature, and obscure texts that few visitors ever bothered to explore. The dim lighting cast soft shadows across the room, creating an atmosphere of intimacy and reflection. Sarah arrived promptly at 7 p.m., her heart pounding as she pushed open the heavy wooden door. Arthur Langley was already seated in a plush armchair near the fireplace, his silhouette illuminated by the flickering flames. He looked up as she entered, his expression unreadable but welcoming. "Ms. Thompson," he said warmly, rising slightly to gesture toward the chair opposite him. "Thank you for coming." Sarah hesitated for a moment before crossing the room and taking a seat. Her hands rested nervously in her lap as she studied him, trying to gauge his intentions. "Mr. Langley, I presume?" she asked cautiously. He nodded, a faint smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Indeed, and please call me Arthur. Formalities seem unnecessary under the circumstances." "Under what circumstances exactly?" Sarah countered, her tone polite but firm. "You left me a cryptic note asking to meet here." "I'm curious why." Arthur chuckled softly, leaning back in his chair. "Direct and to the point, I admire that quality in a person." "Very well, let's dispense with pretense. I've been observing events at this hospital for some time now, particularly your recent efforts to expose the influence wielded by individuals like Eleanor Whitmore." Sarah stiffened slightly, her defenses rising instinctively. "Are you suggesting I overstepped? Because if there's something I should know—" No, Arthur interrupted gently, holding up a hand to reassure her. "On the contrary, I commend your actions. They demonstrate integrity and courage, qualities sorely lacking in many who occupy positions of power. However, I suspect you may not fully grasp the extent of the forces you're challenging." His words sent a chill down Sarah's spine, though she masked her unease with a neutral expression. "What do you mean?" Arthur leaned forward, his gaze piercing yet kind. "Sterling Heights is more than just a hospital, it's a legacy. One I hold dear. My late wife served as its head administrator for decades, shaping it into the institution it is today. When she passed, I ensured the facility remained insulated from external pressures. Until recently." Sarah frowned, piecing together his implication. "You're saying someone has been undermining that legacy?" "Precisely," Arthur confirmed. "Eleanor Whitmore is merely a pawn in a larger game. Behind her lies a network of wealthy benefactors and corporate interests, seeking to transform this hospital into a playground for the elite, at the expense of those who truly need care." The revelation hit Sarah like a thunderclap, forcing her to reconsider everything she thought she knew about the situation. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "And why now?" "Because I believe you have the potential to make a difference," Arthur replied earnestly. "You've already shown remarkable resilience and resourcefulness. With guidance and perhaps a bit of leverage, you could help restore balance to this institution." Sarah shook her head slowly, struggling to process the enormity of what he was proposing. "I'm just a nurse." "Mr. Langley, what can I possibly do against people like that?" "You underestimate yourself," Arthur countered, his tone tinged with admiration. "True change often begins with ordinary individuals willing to stand up, when others remain silent. Besides," he paused, reaching into the inner pocket of his jacket to retrieve a folded document. "You won't be alone." Unfolding the paper, he slid it across the table toward her. It was a deed of ownership, a legal document confirming Arthur's status as the majority shareholder of Sterling Heights Medical Center. Sarah stared at it, her mind reeling as the implications sank in. "You're the owner?" she breathed, incredulous. "All this time you've been sitting in the corner like a ghost?" Arthur finished with a wry smile. An apt description, perhaps. But ghosts have their uses. They see and hear much without drawing attention. Now, however, it's time to act. Sarah sat back in her chair, overwhelmed by the weight of his revelation. "What do you expect me to do?" she asked finally, her voice steadier despite the whirlwind of emotions swirling within her. Arthur regarded her thoughtfully, his expression softening. "I want you to become my eyes and ears within the hospital. Together we'll dismantle the schemes threatening its integrity. In return, I'll provide the resources and support necessary to safeguard your position and protect those who depend on this facility. For a long moment, Sarah simply gazed at him, weighing the risks and rewards of accepting his proposal. On one hand, aligning herself with Arthur offered a chance to effect meaningful change not just for herself, but for countless patients and colleagues whose lives were at stake. On the other hand, stepping into such a high-stakes arena meant exposing herself to dangers she could scarcely imagine. Finally, she took a deep breath and nodded resolutely. If you're serious about protecting this place, then count me in. But understand this, I won't compromise my principles or jeopardize patient care for anyone. Arthur smiled, a genuine warmth lighting up his features. That's precisely why I chose you. Miss Thompson, your principles are your greatest strength. With that, they began outlining a plan, one that would require cunning, precision, and unwavering determination. As they spoke, the fire crackled softly in the background, casting dancing shadows across the room. Neither of them noticed the faint creak of the door opening briefly, nor the pair of eyes watching them from the hallway outside. Over the following weeks, Sarah immersed herself in her new role as Arthur's confidant and operative within Sterling Heights. Operating covertly, she gathered intelligence on key players involved in the restructuring efforts, documenting illicit dealings and unethical practices with meticulous detail. Meanwhile, Arthur worked behind the scenes, leveraging his influence to disrupt the benefactors' plans while maintaining plausible deniability. Their collaboration quickly bore fruit. Using Sarah's findings, Arthur orchestrated a series of strategic maneuvers designed to destabilize the opposition. Anonymous tips were leaked to investigative journalists, prompting exposés that painted Eleanor Whitmore and her associates in an unfavorable light. Internal audits revealed discrepancies in financial records, leading to suspensions and resignations among compromised staff members. Yet for every victory they achieved, new challenges arose. Eleanor, sensing the tide turning against her, doubled down on her campaign to assert dominance. She launched a smear campaign targeting Dr. Hensley, accusing the CEO of mismanagement and incompetence. Rumors spread like wildfire, sowing discord among the board of directors and fueling calls for her removal. Sarah found herself caught in the crossfire, her name dragged into the fray as rumors circulated about her involvement in the leaks. Colleagues whispered behind her back, questioning her loyalty and motives. Even Lisa, once a steadfast ally, grew distant, unsure whether to trust Sarah amidst the chaos. One evening, after a particularly grueling shift, Sarah retreated to the rooftop garden, a secluded sanctuary, where she often went to clear her mind. As she leaned against the railing, staring out at the city skyline, she felt a presence behind her. Turning, she saw Arthur approaching, his cane tapping softly against the pavement. "I heard about the fallout," he said quietly, joining her at the railing. "How are you holding up?" Sarah sighed, running a hand through her hair. "Honestly, I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. Every step forward feels like 2 steps back, and now everyone thinks I'm some kind of traitor." Arthur placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Perception is a powerful tool, but it can be manipulated. We're close to breaking their grip entirely. Trust me." Before Sarah could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed nearby. A figure emerged from the shadows, Dr. Hensley, her face pale and drawn. "We need to talk," she said urgently, her voice trembling with urgency. Leading them to a private alcove, Dr. Hensley revealed devastating news. Eleanor had secured enough votes to force a vote of no confidence during the upcoming board meeting. If successful, she would assume control of the hospital, effectively dismantling its mission of equitable care. "We can't let that happen," Sarah declared fiercely, her resolve reigniting. "There has to be a way to stop her." Arthur nodded grimly. "There is, but it will require bold action. Are you prepared to take the risk?" Without hesitation, Sarah met his gaze. "Whatever it takes." Thus began their most daring gambit yet, a race against time to uncover irrefutable evidence of Eleanor's corruption and present it to the board before the vote. Working tirelessly, Sarah and Arthur pieced together a dossier detailing illegal transactions, falsified reports, and coercive tactics used to manipulate stakeholders. Each discovery brought them closer to victory, but also deeper into peril. As the day of the board meeting approached, tensions reached a fever pitch. Threats loomed large, both overt and veiled. testing Sarah's courage and conviction. Yet buoyed by Arthur's unwavering support and driven by the knowledge that countless lives depended on their success, she pressed onward. Little did they realize, however, that Eleanor had her own ace up her sleeve, an unexpected twist that would throw their carefully laid plans into disarray. The morning of the board meeting dawned gray and overcast, mirroring the storm brewing within Sterling Heights Medical Center. Sarah arrived early, her nerves taut as a bowstring. She carried with her the dossier she and Arthur had meticulously compiled, a damning collection of evidence that exposed Eleanor Whitmore's corruption in stark detail. Yet despite their efforts, an unsettling feeling gnawed at her gut, a sense that something was amiss. As she made her way to the conference room, Sarah noticed an unusual flurry of activity among the hospital staff. Whispers ricocheted through the hallways, snippets of conversation hinting at some undisclosed development. Her unease deepened when she encountered Lisa, who pulled her aside urgently. "Have you heard?" Lisa hissed, glancing around to ensure no one was listening. Eleanor brought legal counsel with her today. Some high-powered attorney from the city. People are saying she's planning to file a lawsuit against the hospital. Sarah's stomach churned at the news. A lawsuit would not only derail their plans, but also cast doubt on the credibility of their evidence, framing it as retaliation rather than justice. "What kind of lawsuit?" she asked, her voice tight with apprehension. Lisa shook her head, clearly distressed. "I don't know the specifics, but rumor has it she's claiming defamation and breach of confidentiality. She's trying to discredit anyone involved in exposing her schemes." The implications were devastating. If Eleanor succeeded in painting herself as the victim, the board might side with her out of fear or self-preservation. Worse still, the fallout could jeopardize everything Sarah and Arthur had worked so hard to achieve. Determined to confront the situation head-on, Sarah headed straight for Arthur's office. Modest suite tucked away on the top floor. He was already there, seated behind a mahogany desk cluttered with papers and files. His expression darkened as she relayed Lisa's information. "This complicates matters," he admitted, rubbing his temples thoughtfully. "But it doesn't change our course of action. We proceed as planned. The truth is our strongest weapon. If we present it convincingly, even the threat of litigation won't hold sway." Sarah nodded, though her confidence wavered under the weight of uncertainty. "What do you expect me to do?" she asked finally, her voice steadier despite the whirlwind of emotions swirling within her. Arthur regarded her thoughtfully, his expression softening. "I want you to become my eyes and ears within the hospital. Together we'll dismantle the schemes threatening its integrity. In return, I'll provide the resources and support necessary to safeguard your position and protect those who depend on this facility." For a long moment, Sarah simply gazed at him, weighing the risks and rewards of accepting his proposal. On one hand, aligning herself with Arthur offered a chance to effect meaningful change not just for herself, but for countless patients and colleagues whose lives were at stake. On the other hand, stepping into such a high-stakes arena meant exposing herself to dangers she could scarcely imagine. Finally, she took a deep breath and nodded resolutely. "If you're serious about protecting this place, then count me in. But understand this, I won't compromise my principles or jeopardize patient care for anyone." Arthur smiled, a genuine warmth lighting up his features. "That's precisely why I chose you. Miss Thompson, your principles are your greatest strength." With that, they began outlining a plan, one that would require cunning, precision, and unwavering determination. As they spoke, the fire crackled softly in the background, casting dancing shadows across the room. Neither of them noticed the faint creak of the door opening briefly, nor the pair of eyes watching them from the hallway outside. The morning of the board meeting dawned gray and overcast, mirroring the storm brewing within Sterling Heights Medical Center. Sarah arrived early, her nerves taut as a bowstring. She carried with her the dossier she and Arthur had meticulously compiled, a damning collection of evidence that exposed Eleanor Whitmore's corruption in stark detail. Yet despite their efforts, an unsettling feeling gnawed at her gut, a sense that something was amiss. As she made her way to the conference room, Sarah noticed an unusual flurry of activity among the hospital staff. Whispers ricocheted through the hallways, snippets of conversation hinting at some undisclosed development. Her unease deepened when she encountered Lisa, who pulled her aside urgently. "Have you heard?" Lisa hissed, glancing around to ensure no one was listening. Eleanor brought legal counsel with her today. Some high-powered attorney from the city. People are saying she's planning to file a lawsuit against the hospital. Sarah's stomach churned at the news. A lawsuit would not only derail their plans, but also cast doubt on the credibility of their evidence, framing it as retaliation rather than justice. What kind of lawsuit? She asked, her voice tight with apprehension. Lisa shook her head, clearly distressed. I don't know the specifics, but rumor has it she's claiming defamation and breach of confidentiality. She's trying to discredit anyone involved in exposing her schemes. The implications were devastating. If Eleanor succeeded in painting herself as the victim, the board might side with her out of fear or self-preservation. Worse still, the fallout could jeopardize everything Sarah and Arthur had worked so hard to achieve. Determined to confront the situation head-on, Sarah headed straight for Arthur's office. Modest suite tucked away on the top floor. He was already there, seated behind a mahogany desk cluttered with papers and files. His expression darkened as she relayed Lisa's information. This complicates matters, he admitted, rubbing his temples thoughtfully. But it doesn't change our course of action. We proceed as planned. The truth is our strongest weapon. If we present it convincingly, even the threat of litigation won't hold sway. Sarah nodded, though her confidence wavered under the weight of uncertainty. What do you expect me to do? She asked finally, her voice steadier despite the whirlwind of emotions swirling within her. Arthur regarded her thoughtfully, his expression softening. I want you to become my eyes and ears within the hospital. Together we'll dismantle the schemes threatening its integrity. In return, I'll provide the resources and support necessary to safeguard your position and protect those who depend on this facility. For a long moment, Sarah simply gazed at him, weighing the risks and rewards of accepting his proposal. On one hand, aligning herself with Arthur offered a chance to effect meaningful change not just for herself, but for countless patients and colleagues whose lives were at stake. On the other hand, stepping into such a high-stakes arena meant exposing herself to dangers she could scarcely imagine. Finally, she took a deep breath and nodded resolutely. If you're serious about protecting this place, then count me in. But understand this, I won't compromise my principles or jeopardize patient care for anyone. Arthur smiled, a genuine warmth lighting up his features. That's precisely why I chose you. Ms. Thompson, your principles are your greatest strength. With that, they began outlining a plan, one that would require cunning, precision, and unwavering determination. As they spoke, the fire crackled softly in the background, casting dancing shadows across the room. Neither of them noticed the faint creak of the door opening briefly, nor the pair of eyes watching them from the hallway outside. The night before the board meeting, Sarah returned home exhausted but hopeful. As she unlocked her apartment door, however, she found an envelope slipped underneath, a plain white packet bearing no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper containing a grainy photograph of her childhood home, along with a note scrawled in jagged handwriting. Some secrets are better left buried. Her blood ran cold. Whoever had sent it knew exactly which buttons to push, dredging up memories she had spent years trying to escape. Her mind raced with possibilities: Eleanor's investigators, someone closer to home, or perhaps Victoria Langley, seeking to undermine her uncle's alliance. Before panic could take hold, Sarah called Arthur. He arrived within minutes, his demeanor calm but alert. After examining the note, he instructed her to secure it safely and avoid confronting anyone prematurely. This is meant to intimidate you, he said. Don't give them the satisfaction of seeing fear. Despite his reassurances, sleep eluded Sarah that night. Memories flooded back unbidden, her father losing his job, her mother working double shifts to keep food on the table, the countless sacrifices they had made to ensure she had opportunities they never did. Those experiences had shaped her into the woman she was today, but they also left scars that others could exploit. The next morning, armed with courage and conviction, Sarah addressed the crowd gathered in the hospital auditorium. Standing at the podium, she looked out at the sea of faces, some familiar, others strangers, and spoke from the heart. This hospital isn't defined by wealth or privilege, she declared, her voice ringing clear despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. It's defined by compassion, integrity, and the belief that every life matters equally. If we allow fear or greed to dictate our actions, we betray everything this institution stands for. As applause erupted throughout the room, Sarah locked eyes with Arthur, who stood at the back nodding approvingly. For the first time in weeks, she felt a glimmer of hope. not because the battle was won, but because she realized she wasn't fighting it alone. Unbeknownst to Sarah, however, Eleanor watched the proceedings unfold via live stream, her lips curling into a sinister smile. "Impressive," she murmured to her lawyer. "But speeches won't save her. Let's see how long her allies stick around when the truth comes out." And so, as the town hall concluded and plans for reform gained momentum, a new storm brewed on the horizon, one that would test Sarah's strength, Arthur's resolve, and the very foundation of Sterling Heights itself. In the aftermath of the tumultuous board meeting, Sterling Heights Medical Center entered a period of cautious recovery. The Independent Oversight Committee swiftly convened, launching investigations into both Eleanor's schemes and Arthur's alleged misconduct. While the administration claimed the restructuring aimed to improve patient care, the data suggested otherwise. Budget allocations skewed heavily toward cosmetic upgrades and luxury amenities, features tailored to attract wealthy clientele like Eleanor Whitmore, while essential services faced significant reductions. Sarah shared her findings with trusted colleagues, sparking heated discussions about accountability and transparency. Many suspected external pressure from influential donors or board members, though no concrete evidence surfaced. Frustrated but undeterred, Sarah resolved to confront the administration directly, armed with irrefutable proof of their mismanagement. Her opportunity came sooner than expected. During a routine audit, Sarah stumbled upon a confidential document outlining negotiations between the hospital and our major benefactor. To her astonishment, the benefactor's name was none other than Eleanor Whitmore. According to the paperwork, Eleanor had pledged substantial funding contingent on specific operational changes strikingly similar to those recently announced. Realizing the implications, Sarah knew she had uncovered the smoking gun. Armed with the document, she scheduled a private meeting with the hospital's CEO, Dr. Margaret Hensley. Known for her no-nonsense approach and commitment to ethical practices, Dr. Hensley was Sarah's best hope for addressing the issue head-on. The meeting took place in Dr. Hensley's office, a modest yet functional space, adorned with medical accolades and family photographs. Sarah presented her findings calmly but firmly, laying out the connections between Eleanor's donations and the controversial restructuring plans. Dr. Hensley listened attentively, her expression growing increasingly grave as the evidence mounted. "This is deeply troubling," she admitted once Sarah finished speaking. "If these allegations are true, it represents a breach of our core values. We cannot allow external pressures to compromise patient care." Sarah nodded, relief washing over her. "I trust you'll handle this appropriately," she said earnestly. "But I also want to ensure safeguards are put in place to prevent future manipulation." Dr. Hensley assured her that immediate action would be taken, including an independent review of all donor agreements and enhanced oversight mechanisms. Satisfied with the response, Sarah left the office feeling cautiously optimistic about the outcome. What she didn't realize, however, was that her actions had inadvertently drawn Arthur Langley's attention once again. Unbeknownst to anyone, Arthur had been monitoring the situation closely, intrigued by the unfolding drama and Sarah's role in exposing the truth. His interest wasn't purely altruistic. Sterling Heights Medical Center held significant personal value to him, though few outside his inner circle understood why. When Sarah returned to work the following day, she found a note slipped beneath her locker door. Written in elegant script, it read, "Your courage inspires admiration. Meet me tonight at 7 p.m. in the library lounge. IL." Curiosity mingled with apprehension as Sarah considered the invitation. Who was AL and what could they possibly want? Something told her this encounter would prove pivotal, but whether for better or worse remained to be seen. The dismissal of Eleanor's lawsuit marked a turning point, not just for Sterling Heights Medical Center but for everyone involved in the battle. The courtroom victory was more than a legal win. It was a validation of principles, a testament to the power of collective action against greed and corruption. Yet as Sarah stood outside the courthouse, surrounded by colleagues and supporters, she couldn't shake the bittersweet weight of what they had endured. Eleanor, humiliated and defeated, retreated from public view almost immediately after the verdict. Her name became synonymous with scandal, her reputation irreparably tarnished. Though whispers of her machinations lingered in certain circles, she no longer posed a direct threat to Sterling Heights. For Sarah, This knowledge brought relief, but also an unsettling awareness that such battles rarely ended cleanly. There would always be others like Eleanor, eager to exploit vulnerabilities for personal gain. Victoria Langley, too, faded into obscurity, though not without leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. Arthur revealed during a private conversation that his niece had quietly severed ties with Eleanor shortly before the trial. Concluded, citing irreconcilable differences, whether her decision stemmed from genuine remorse or calculated self-preservation remained unclear. Regardless, Victoria's departure signaled the dissolution of one of their most formidable alliances, allowing Sterling Heights to focus on rebuilding without further interference. For Arthur, the resolution of the conflict carried a deeply personal significance. In protecting the hospital his late wife had cherished, he felt a profound sense of closure. Yet there was a quiet sadness in his demeanor, a recognition that the legacy he sought to preserve had been irrevocably altered. "Change is inevitable," he told Sarah one evening as they walked through the hospital gardens. "What matters is whether we guide it towards something meaningful." Sarah nodded, understanding the gravity of his words. Over the months of turmoil, she had come to see Sterling Heights not merely as a building or institution, but as a living entity shaped by the people who inhabited it. Its walls bore witness to countless stories of triumphs, tragedies, and everything in between. To restore its integrity wasn't just about policy changes. It was about honoring those stories, ensuring they continued to unfold in ways that uplifted rather than oppressed. With the immediate threat neutralized, Sarah turned her attention to the future. Rebuilding Sterling Heights required more than structural reforms. It demanded a cultural shift, one that prioritized inclusivity, transparency, and accountability at every level. Under her leadership, the coalition launched initiatives aimed at fostering trust and collaboration among staff, patients, and the broader community. One such initiative was the creation of a patient advocacy council, composed of individuals from diverse backgrounds who could provide first-hand insights into the challenges faced by underserved populations. The council worked closely with hospital administrators to identify areas for improvement, from language accessibility services to financial assistance programs. Their efforts yielded tangible results, earning widespread acclaim and setting a precedent for other institutions to follow. Dr. James Carter proved instrumental in driving these changes, leveraging his influence to secure funding and resources critical to their success. His partnership with Sarah evolved into a dynamic alliance, rooted in mutual respect and shared vision. Together, they implemented sweeping changes aimed at addressing systemic inequities within the hospital's operations, from revising patient intake protocols to establishing scholarships for aspiring healthcare professionals from underserved communities. Arthur, meanwhile, assumed a quieter role, offering guidance and support when needed, but stepping back to allow Sarah and Dr. Carter to lead. He often joked that he was too old for drama, though his sharp wit and strategic mind remained invaluable assets. More importantly, he served as a reminder of the values that underpinned their mission, a steadfast commitment to doing what was right, even when it came at great personal cost. Despite the progress they had made, shadows of the past continued to loom over Sterling Heights. Some staff members harbored lingering resentment toward Sarah, viewing her rise to prominence as disruptive or undeserved. Others, though outwardly supportive, struggled to adapt to the new paradigm, clinging to outdated practices and attitudes. These tensions occasionally surfaced in subtle ways: snide remarks during meetings, passive-aggressive emails, or thinly veiled resistance to change. Sarah confronted these challenges head-on, refusing to let negativity undermine their achievements. She held regular town halls, encouraging open dialogue and addressing concerns directly. When necessary, she implemented disciplinary measures, making it clear that toxic behavior would not be tolerated. Slowly but surely, the culture began to shift, replaced by one grounded in empathy and accountability. Yet the emotional toll of leadership weighed heavily on her. Late at night, when the hospital fell silent and the weight of responsibility pressed down upon her, Sarah found herself questioning whether she was truly equipped for the role she had assumed. Doubts crept in, whispering insidious thoughts. What if I fail? What if all of this unravels because of me? It was during one such moment of vulnerability that Arthur sought her out. Finding her alone in the library lounge, staring blankly at the fireplace, he sat beside her without saying a word. For several minutes, they simply sat together, the crackling flames providing a comforting backdrop to her unspoken fears. Finally, Arthur broke the silence. "You remind me of my wife," he said softly, his voice tinged with nostalgia. "Not because you're alike. She was far more stubborn than you, but because you share her belief in the impossible. She used to say that true leaders aren't defined by their victories, but by how they rise after falling." Sarah blinked back tears, touched by the comparison. "I don't feel like a leader," she admitted. "Most days I feel like I'm faking it, hoping no one notices." Arthur chuckled, shaking his head. "That's called imposter syndrome, my dear. Even the best leaders experience it. But here's the secret: none of us are perfect. We stumble, we doubt, we make mistakes. What sets us apart is our willingness to keep going anyway." His words resonated deeply, easing some of the pressure she had placed on herself. Leadership wasn't about being infallible. It was about learning, growing, and inspiring others to do the same. With renewed determination, Sarah vowed to embrace the challenges ahead, knowing she wasn't alone in facing them. Months passed and Sterling Heights flourished under its renewed identity. Patients praised the compassionate care they received, while staff marveled at the collaborative spirit that now permeated every corner of the facility. Awards and accolades poured in, recognizing the hospital's innovative approaches to equity and inclusion. Yet for Sarah, the greatest reward lay in the small, everyday moments, the smiles of gratitude from patients, the camaraderie among colleagues, the knowledge that their work mattered. One crisp autumn morning, as golden sunlight streamed through the lobby windows, Sarah found herself standing before a plaque unveiled in honor of Arthur's late wife. It read, "In loving memory of Margaret Langley, whose vision and dedication transformed Sterling Heights into a sanctuary for all." Beneath the inscription was a quote, attributed to her: "Healing begins not with medicine, but with humanity." As Sarah traced the engraved words with her fingertips, she felt a surge of gratitude, not just for Margaret's legacy, but for the journey that had brought her here. Arthur approached quietly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "She would have admired you," he said simply. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes, though they were tears of joy rather than sorrow. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "for believing in me, for trusting me to carry this forward." Arthur smiled, his expression warm yet wistful. "The future belongs to those brave enough to shape it," he replied, "and I have no doubt you'll continue to do extraordinary things." With those words, he stepped back, allowing Sarah a moment of quiet reflection. As she gazed around the bustling lobby, filled with life and purpose, she realized that Sterling Heights was more than a hospital. It was a testament to resilience, compassion, and the enduring power of hope. And though the road ahead would undoubtedly bring new challenges, she faced it with unwavering resolve, knowing she had already overcome the impossible